Today, the government was successful in their prosecution of Stuart Rhodes, who was the leader in the conspiracy to overthrow the government, and he was found guilty of conspiracy to commit treason. You may wonder, why wasn't he convicted of treason? Well, if you are successful in your bid to commit treason, then the government has been overthrown, and there is no more government to hold you accountable for the treasonous act that you've done. So he is found guilty of conspiracy to commit treason against the government through force, leading up to January 6th and on the day of January 6th. Now, something that has been brought up is, well, good night, he's going to go to prison. But remember how Hitler went to prison, and when he came, and he wrote a book while he was in prison, and then when he came out, he was able to regain power over the coming years, and he was far more dangerous after his prison sentence. Well, I know a little bit about prison. And just as some perspective on that, there is a difference between Hitler's time in prison of 9 months and whatever sentence that Stuart Rhodes and his compatriots are going to pull. I would be surprised if he gets a term of less than 10 years. And please remember that this is federal time. There is no parole for federal time. Sometimes a person is convicted of heinous murders and they'll say life without possibility of parole. Well, whatever anybody says without possibility of parole, they're sending a person to a state prison where they have to make that distinction. And state prisons in general, are less pleasant than federal prisons. Although that depends on the federal prison, it depends on the state prison. But in general, federal prisons are supported by federal dollars, and the federal government spends more on their prisons. Be that as it may, if a person is in prison for longer than 18 months to 32 months, a year and a half to 2.5 years, somewhere around 2 years, things change. Obviously at 2 years, the person is a felon and is marked as a felon for the rest of their life. But more importantly, that right at about that break point of 2 years, everyone who knows that person, their wife, their children, their loved ones, their friends, they move on with their lives. They cannot sit there forever and ever and ever and maintain their loyalty and commitments to that person. And that person in prison gets to be a burden. Send me money for my commissary account. We need to talk to this lawyer and that lawyer. And they get to be a real burden on the people who are outside. As these people move on, those relationships don't exist anymore. If you're the leader of a seditious far-right conspiracy group, they've found another leader, because you can't do it from prison. It is very difficult to do anything from prison. Even a phone call is prohibitively expensive. And you can write letters, but even that costs something, and letters just aren't as effective. And you have no access to the internet while you're with the federales, however they say it in Mexico, while you're with the federal prison system. You're not going to have any access to the internet. Maybe a library. You can read a Zane Grey Western while you're waiting your time out. And this in my opinion is a huge difference. Stuart Rhodes is not once he gets out, everything he's going to be far older than he is now, and his movement can't wait for him. He'll have, as I say, no access to very little access. People can come to see him if one, he says they can, and two, the prison system says they can. Do you think his co-conspirators are going to have access to visit him? I can tell you in a word, no. They will not have access to him, and he will not have access to him. If he is caught with a cell phone in federal prison, life gets ugly. They are more than happy to put you in solitary confinement for infractions of that sort, and that ain't pretty at all. So, for those who are saying, oh, it's just going to be the same thing as the Nazi Party. Hitler came out and he was so popular as soon as he came out. There will always be people who are attempting to do evil and overthrow the government. But it ain't, in my opinion, it ain't going to be Stuart Rhodes.